Hello and welcome to South Florida. We are so glad you finally decided to join God's country. Am I right or am I right? Yeah. Hey, I'm from Atlanta, but I'm going to tell you there is not better weather in the country of the United States than where I am today. You guys live down here because you're smart, okay? Let's just get it out there. You're smart because this is a beautiful day. I told them a little bit earlier, I do want to welcome you to the John Maxwell, Rob Hoskins Change Your World book tour. This is the first session. In fact, join us tomorrow from Atlanta, and I promise you we'll be better. I've already warned the locals here in Florida that John says you're never good the first time, and we're going to try to prove him wrong because this is going to be epic. This is not just a book tour. This is not just giving you an opportunity to buy John Maxwell's book that actually releases tomorrow. This is an invitation to make a difference in your world, in my world, in our world. This is much more than a book tour. We wouldn't be on the road the next 8 days if it was just a book tour. This is about bringing a message that will bring our communities together and do something that is transformative, something that will make a difference. And you today get to hear about it before anybody else. And I'm thankful. I'm proud of our people in Florida that has joined us in this room. Very spread out, but I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here online because today starts a day that I believe we will look back on and say, as John Maxwell challenges us, we were in the room. In fact, try that right now. Say, I was in the room. Go ahead, you try it. I was in the room. In fact, on the chat box, say, I was in the room too. We're just going to call Facebook Live. We're going to call YouTube in the room as well. Type it. Say, I was in the room because today you get to be a part of something that is going to change the world. Now, I'm going to get out of the way because truly, a leader that I've seen experience transformation, someone that is walking the talk of transformation, spreading the message of transformation, decided with his friend Rob Hoskins that now is the time to write almost the manifesto of what true leadership looks like. Leadership that is about others. And so I'm really proud today to welcome my mentor, probably, if you're watching, if you're in the room, one of your mentors as well. Please help me welcome John Maxwell.
Thank you very much, and it's delightful to be not only with you here in Palm Beach, West Palm Beach, but also online with so many of you. And we're at Palm Beach Atlantic, and this is a wonderful, wonderful school. And I know many people who have gone here, and for you to host us, Dr. Deb Swin is the president of Palm Beach Atlantic, and for you to host us, thank you very much. You've been very kind, and it's good to be here. It's very good to be here, and it's very good to be with you. I'm going to walk you through a little personal process, if it's okay, in a little bit, probably about 15 minutes. Mark, who was introducing me a moment ago, who's the CEO of all of the John Maxwell Enterprise, our 7 companies, and Rob Hoskins, who's the co-author of the book Change Your World, they're going to join me. But I want to talk to you for a few moments, and I want to share with you, as a communicator and as a leader, there's a process that I go through whenever I'm about to launch something or begin something or start something. And because many of you are leaders and communicators and want to make a difference in your life, I just thought, I've never done this before, I thought I would just take a moment and share with the process of what I do, because I've done it hundreds and hundreds of times. And it allows me to kind of get in touch with myself so that I can get in touch with the audience, because all communicators understand it's not about me, it's about you. And the book is not about me, it's about you. One of the first things I tell anyone who wants to really develop their communication gifts, one of the first things I say to them, if you really want to be a great communicator, rule number one is get over yourself. Because it's not about you. It's not about me at all today. I know it's a book launch, and my name happens to be on a book with Rob's, but it's not about me. But the process that I go through is very similar. I'm an early riser, so usually by 5 I'm always up and getting my day going in a ritual that I have. But when I launch something like this, when something's brand new, I get up and I get my iPhone and I get over into my notes section. And I start talking to myself through the notes, and basically I ask myself 3 questions. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And what do I know? And all 3 of those questions direct me in different ways. I have a purpose, a goal, obviously. But what am I feeling helps me to emotionally get in the game. What am I thinking has everything to do with the process that has got me to this day. And what do I know is the solid ground that I want to help put people on that really allows them to have the foundation also. So anyway, I got up there and I started that process again today. And what I wanted to share with you was that I never intended ever to write a book. That wasn't, I loved reading. Literally, my father, who just passed away last July 4th at the age of 98, he paid us starting in the 7th grade to read books. That's how we got our allowance. And he would pick the books out and he would hand them to us and we would read them, and then we would give him a report on the book, and then he would, whatever he bought the book for, that's what he would pay us to read that book. So by the time I graduated from high school, I already had all the major books under my belt, and I did that for my children. I do that for my grandchildren. It's one of the greatest investments that you'll ever make. My father, one time I talked to my dad, and I said, Dad, all of my friends get paid to do chores, get an allowance to do chores. I think that's a good idea. Don't you? And he said, no. He said, I think it's a terrible idea. He said, I don't pay you to do chores. You do chores because you're part of the family. And I don't pay you to be part of the family. He said, let me explain it this way. By the time you were born, you already owed your mother for 9 months of room and board. So, shut up and take out the garbage. We don't do that here. But he said, I do put my money where my values are, and my values are in good books. And so by the time I graduated from high school, I already had the good stuff under my belt. I love to read books, but I never thought about writing books. But I had a mentor in my early 20s who had written 5 books. And we were having lunch one day, and in our discussion of having lunch, I asked him the question. And the question that I asked him was very simple. Les, why do you write books? And he gave me an answer that was transformational in my life. He said, John, I write books to influence and add value to people that I will never meet. Yes, I'm getting popping all the time. Four, 5, 6, 7. That's much better. Thank you very much. Why were we 4 minutes too slow? Somebody told me one time, said, Johnny, I can't believe what you say. I said, you'd be more impressed if you knew what I didn't say. Just trust me on that. And so my mentor, Les, looked at me and he said to me, he said, John, I write books to influence and add value to people I will never meet in my lifetime. Immediately, not an hour later, immediately I looked at him and I said, then I'm going to write books. And I write books for only one reason. I write books to help people, to add value to people, to help them add value to others. And that's foundational for why we're here today. My mission, my purpose, the heart of what I do has never changed. It was the same when I had my first book, Think on These Things, and it's 34 million books later, it's still the same. Nothing changes. I want to add value to people, especially people that I don't even get to know. Now, I've been working with the people here and meeting many friends and making friends, knew some that are here. But you that are online, the high probability is I've never met you. The high probability is I'll never meet you. But it's okay, because although we won't meet physically, we're going to have a meeting now. And the meeting that we're going to have now is a connection of the heart. Maybe the best way I can explain it is, a few months ago, my team, we were in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we were visiting a school that was using our values curriculum in the third, fourth, fifth grade. And so they said we'd like for you to meet with the third graders and have a little Q&A. I said I'd love that, so I went in the room and we're having a little Q&A. And all of a sudden, a young man, a little third grader named Ethan raised his hand, and he stood up, and I said, yes, Ethan. I said, what would you like to ask me? And he stood up and he said, Mr. Maxwell, he said, I have a question for you. And I knew the third graders knew I was going to meet with them, and I knew that they were kind of prepping questions probably. I mean, I've been in these type of things before, but this kid just absolutely what he asked me, just grabbed hold of me and grabbed hold of everyone. He said, Mr. Maxwell, he said, do you ever feel right here, Mr. Maxwell, right here, do you ever feel right here in your heart that you would really like to make a difference in people's lives? He's a third grader. I said, Ethan, come on up here. And he came up and he sat on my lap, and I hugged him. I said, I know exactly what you're feeling right now. And then I just put my hand on him and just kind of loved on him and did a little leadership mantle on him. And I just said to him, Ethan, you're going to be a great person. You're going to be a great leader. That heart right there will take you a long way. And why I say that in this story today is because we're not third graders, but I can tell you right now, even third graders, we were created, by the way, let me stop. We were created to make a difference. We were created to be our brother and our sister's keeper. We were created to add value. As my friend, we were doing a whole day shoot a few months ago with Steve Harvey, who was just one of the most beautiful, wonderful, fun people I've ever met in all my life. And we were doing a digital product on communication together. And about in the afternoon, in the middle of the afternoon, all of a sudden, Steve said something, I mean, the cameras are rolling, and we're just going back and forth, having a great time communicating. But Steve Harvey, he said something. He said, John, he said, you know, a career is what you get paid for, but a calling is what you're made for. And I said, oh my gosh, stop the cameras. I know we're doing communication, but he's just communicated, and I want to take notes. And I mean, I'm just like you're taking notes right now. You're just grabbing hold of stuff because stuff's fallen, and you want to be able to take it home with you unless you have an amazing mind. And if you don't take notes, you have that kind of amazing mind. If afterwards you can come up and tell me how you do that, I'll give you a quiz and see how amazing you really are. My name is John. I'm your friend. But every one of us are created to want to make a difference. When I was in school, especially in high school, now when I went to college, I was going for my calling and everything really changed. But basically in school, I hate to admit it in such hallowed educational grounds as this, but I wasn't the top student, but I was the top relationship guru in the school. I was the student body president, which you didn't have to be the smartest kid, but all the kids liked me. So I played ball and I had friends, okay? That's what I did. And then I went to class. And it's another story. I don't really go there, but I was a leader even at a very young age, and I had 4 wonderful, smart girls who helped me with all of my classwork, and that's another story. I don't even want to go there, but in study halls, I would go checking on all four to make sure they were getting my work done because I insisted on having my homework turned in on time. I mean, there are just certain things you must do. You understand that. And by the way, if you're going to lead people and delegate, make sure you get smart ones, okay? I mean, if you're going to do this, make sure make sure that the IQ is there. But in the process of growing and maturing in my life, and especially when I went to college and I began to follow my calling and the things that I love for, I was called at a very young age to develop and train leaders. It happened to be on the 200th birthday of America, July 4th, 1976. I'm a kid still in my 20s, have the 10th largest church in America. I'm speaking to 5,000 people. Back then, 5,000 people were a lot of people. And I'm talking about America. And in the middle of my talk that day, direct talk right from God to me. He said, John, the rest of your life, you're going to train leaders. In fact, I remember going home, taking Margaret after the service. We're going out to eat. And I said, Margaret, the strangest thing happened to me. I said, God talked to me. And he said that I'm going to train leaders. And she said, well, what are you going to do about it? I said, nothing. I said, if it's God, he'll set it up. I don't need I learned a long time ago, God will open the doors. You don't need a crowbar. And sure enough, the doors started opening, and it began to be my life mission to train and develop leaders in such a way that we literally developed through Equip an organization that we trained 6 million leaders in every country of the world. And after training those leaders, I said there's something missing. And what's missing is I want to teach trained leaders how to be transformational leaders. You see, trained leaders is a skill set, which is wonderful, and I love that. I live in that world. I have a company that does nothing but corporate training for many, many companies. So I understand all of that. But I said I want to go beyond a skill set. I want to go to the heart. And I want to go to values. I don't need to explain to any of you in this room. I don't need to explain to any of you watching online right now. I don't need to explain to any of you right now, we have lost our way. We have lost our way. We have a values deficit, not only in this country, but around the world. In fact, for the last 7 years, we have been in other countries, and everywhere we go, in the last 6 months, I've been at 2 presidents of different countries. Everywhere we go, when we talk to the leaders of the country, everywhere we go, I don't need to convince anybody that we have that we don't have a values problem. Everybody understands that we've got a hole, we've got a values issue, we've left our way, we've lost our way. And what I love about Change Your World, by the way, I'm going to tell you, it's my best book. The reason it's my best book is because Rob co-authored it with me. Here, Rob, I'm going to give that to you. I can't handle 2 of these. I can hardly handle 1 of these up here, to be honest with you. It's just kind of dangerous. The reason it's my best work is because I didn't write this book alone. Rob helped me. In fact, my team finally said, John, if you really want to write a good book, get somebody good. So when you read this, just understand that Rob took me to a whole new level. And if there's anything in it you don't really like about the book, let Rob know that. Would you just go directly to him and just talk to him. Help him understand where he didn't help me enough, okay? Just please let him know. But in the process of writing this book, when I say this is my best book, you don't get too excited about that, because anybody that knows me knows that every book I write, when I'm writing it and it comes out like a launch right now, I always say it's my best book. And the reason that is because I had a mentor who, with my 5th book, when it came out, he was mentoring me about writing, and I went to him and I gave him the book, and he looked at it and he smiled, and with kind of an approving smile. He said, oh, John, I'm so pleased, I'm so excited for you. And then he looked at me and said, is this your best book? I said, oh, yes, it's my best book. He said, good, because he said, you're only as good as your last book. He said, never forget this. Don't ever live off of your reputation. Just because you did something good one time doesn't mean that you deserve an audience the next time. That day, he explained the difference between best and better. Best is what I'm doing right now. Better is what I must do tomorrow. And you never can rest, ever, 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 on the best. There's no such place as success in life until you've achieved such a place where everybody just buys into everything because of what you've done. You see, there's a difference between respect and honor. Honor is what you've done in the past. Respect is what you're doing right now. And I live for respect, not honor. And the reason I'm so excited about this book is not only because Rob helped me. I'm so excited about this book because this book will help you make a difference in the lives of people around you. So let me ask you a question. This is kind of like qualifying time, okay, for the book. We kind of like to qualify you before we get you into the book. The first question I have, I've got two questions. Question number one is, how many of you want to improve and better your life? Would you raise your hand, okay? That's good. I think that's 100%. Basically, if you didn't raise your hand, you can leave. The book's not for you. You and I aren't on the same wavelength. You just need to go do something else for the day. My name's John. I'm your friend. Now, here's another question. You all raised your hand that you wanted to improve your life. Now, the second question is, how many of you know someone else that's near and dear to you that you'd like to help them get better? And you'd raise your hand. Now, let me just say something, what I've just noticed in those two questions. The first one, you put your hand up very quickly, but on the second one, you put your hand up much more passionately. It's kind of like, oh, yes, oh, my gosh. I know people that really need this book. I know people, it's kind of like I know I need help, but I know, how many of you know you need help, but you really know people who need a lot more help than what you have? Do you understand where I'm coming from? Okay, well, this book is for you. But it's more than a book, and the reason I'm so passionate about it, this is all about a movement. Now, mass movements don't begin with a mass. They begin with a few. In fact, isn't it interesting that they begin with us today? Just us. And I'm excited about just us. Somebody said, well, it's just us. But that's how all movements begin. It begins with just us. It begins with just a few. And then when you begin to watch transformational movements, if you study them in history, they began to be contagious, and they began to increase legs, and all of a sudden they began to go places where you wouldn't even thought they would have gone, and they began to do things you would have never expected them to do. And so we're beginning today. This is kind of, it's the beginning of a book tour, but really this is the beginning of a tour, a movement tour. And here's why I'm so excited. What we have in the book, what we have in the values assessment that we want all of you to have, it's totally free. Just go online and take it. What we have in what we call transformation tables, where we basically transform the world one table at a time. What we have discovered is that everything we're going to share with you, there's no theory to it. There's no hope to it. It's all reality because we've been doing this for 7 years in different countries internationally, and we're getting ready to bring it to America. I wanted to go out. I wanted to work it. As Mark said, we're never good the first time. In my world, sometimes we're never good the second time. We're never good the third time. But it doesn't stop us because every time we do it, we learn, we ask questions, we fail forward, the whole process. But here's what we do know. After a few million people have gone through these transformation tables, after a few people have learned and begun to live these values, what we really do know is this works. And it not only works in other countries. In fact, we have right now 22 presidents of countries. 22. They've given us an invitation to come into their country to do our values teaching and training. I just finished speaking to the Secretary of Education in Guatemala. And she said, John, we've used your curriculum now for about 1.5 years in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And she said, our teachers are saying, and by the way, they do it in little transformation tables with 6 kids around, and the kids lead the tables and facilitate the tables, not the teachers. Because how do you ever raise leaders? You raise leaders by letting them practice leadership. You can't learn to lead just in the mind. You have to practice it. And so we're developing leaders for Guatemala like crazy. And the teachers say in 3 weeks, they can see a difference in the children's attitudes with values training. And we're going to do it with adults. We're going to do it with kids. It's done around transformation tables. It's based on values. And why values? Because values helps us to become better on the inside before we become better on the outside. They help us to become bigger on the inside before we become bigger on the outside. Now, I'm a person of faith, and you know that. Many of you that are watching are people of faith. It's go, you know, I love you unconditionally. That's never an issue in my life. You know that. But Paul, when he wrote the church of Galatia, when he talked about the fruit of the Spirit, when he wrapped that up, I never have heard anybody teach this at all. They always teach the fruit of the Spirit. But at the end, he said, let me just say this. These values are above the law and are limitless. You can't change a country by changing the laws of the country. Doesn't work, folks. Hasn't worked. Won't work. You change a country. You change a community with values. And once we begin to embrace these values, live these values, learn these values, we become more valuable to ourselves, we become more valuable to our community, we become more valuable in life. And that's what Change Your World is all about. And I have two friends that are going to come up here on the stage with me in a moment. And these two people have lived this life with me. In fact, Rob, just the reason he really came on the team on this is because he, with One Hope, as a leader of One Hope, has done so much transformation around the world. I mean, he's so much bigger than I am. He's so much better than I am. He's done so much more than I am. And I said, I got to get somebody that can help me because he's just on a level that I'm not on. And so we did this book together. And it means a lot for me, for you to know them. It means a lot for you to hear from them. And it means a lot for us to talk to you together. And so if you would allow me, I would like to ask Mark Cole and Rob Hoskins to come on up and join me now. And Mark's going to kind of MC it. Would you give them a hand, okay? We're going to talk. Okay. Hi, my friend. How's it going? Good.
Great job.
Well, thank you.
Anybody fired up about Change Your World right there? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. So, Rob, boy, there's so much I want to ask you. But why the book with John? Why did you decide to do this, spend your time? You were working on...
Why a book with John Maxwell? I remember John and I were on a boat down here in South Florida, by the way, on a beautiful day like today.
Yeah, Stephen.
And we were cruising, talking about our most favorite topic we've had over the last couple of years, about transformation. And I just finished a doctoral dissertation on kind of the science of transformation and discussing those things. I said, John, I really think I want to turn it into a popular book. And John turned to me and he said, Rob, could I write that book with you? And I said, let me give you a little bit of advice. When John Maxwell asks you if he wants to write a book with you, I said, let me think about John Maxwell wants to write. Yes, the answer is yes. It took me about 2 seconds. John says it took you about 1 second too long. I think he's right about that.
You're a quick brainer, buddy.
I'm a quick learner. And the reason, Mark, that I was so excited, obviously, about John and I being able to write this book together is so much talk about transformation in our world. Transformation is a buzzword. Everybody's talking about transformation. But what I found is few people could really define what transformation was. Fewer still could actually tell us how transformation works and how to make it happen in the world. And then I felt like there was only a handful of people that really could take these principles of transformation and had the desire and the will and the platform to be able to do it on a scale that this world desperately needs. And you know, John and Mark, you and this organization, I saw had the capacity to take these principles, these hope principles, these principles of transformation, and really create something of value on a mass scale to do more than just write a book, but really to launch a movement. And really, I believe God has equipped John his entire life for this moment in order for us to do, and I'm not talking hyperbole, I'm not exaggerating here, what I really believe could be the largest transformational leadership movement this world has ever seen. And so when I think about that, obviously it got me excited. And I said, I'm all in, John. Any way I can serve you to do this, any help I have, anything I've learned over these last 30 years of doing transformation around the world, I'm yours. I'm in.
John, I'd love for you to answer that question because I'm work close with you. 86 books. I think you've had 3, maybe 4 co-authored books. Why did you want to write this with Rob?
Well, because I needed help. I learned a long time ago that when you do a good partnership, it always compounds the return. I mean, 1 plus, I mean, we know the scripture, 1 will put 1,000, 2 will put 10. But the whole issue is, I learned a long time ago that partnership is really a way to increase influence and speed up the game, what you want to accomplish. The question is not, should you partner with somebody? The question is, who you partner with. And when Rob and I and you and Stefan were on the boat that day and we were talking, I just felt the Spirit speak to me and say, this is the person and this is the time, and let's get writing a transformation book. Let me just say this. This is a whole different teaching, and I don't want to get into it today, but I have a whole teaching on what I call layered learning. And it goes back to kind of like you're never good the first time, but what happens is as you experience, et cetera, evaluate, reflect everything, you just keep layering your learning until someday, all of a sudden, you begin to have some great insight and you begin to have great wisdom. And when I started off, I want to make a difference was kind of where I started, Mark. And desire is the seed of the dream. Wonder if somebody was visiting us for a moment. I'd be glad to stop. I need to stop for a moment. Desire is the seed of the dream, but consistency is the fruit of the dream. And consistency compounds. So 80 whatever books it is, I just keep writing, keep layering, keep building. Is this your best book? Better, best? And you come to a point where all of a sudden you say, now's the time. And when Rob and I were on the boat that day, and he was talking about what God had put in his heart, and I saw that he knew things I didn't know. He had experienced things I had not experienced. I just realized that he could help me. And I love having people help me. I need a lot of help.
And you know, Mark, this wasn't the first time we'd partnered together.
Yes.
Several years ago, we at One Hope had done research, and what we had done was the largest ever research study on the attitudes and belief of young people around the world. And what we found is that their number one least desired value was adding value to others. I mean, was just shocked us. And when we dug a little bit deeper on our qualitative research, what we found is that the way they pictured leadership, a lot of them said, I don't want to be a leader. If that's what a leader looks like, I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to be corrupt. I don't want to have that type of people pulling on me, all these sorts of things. So we knew we had a problem. And that's when I first went to John. I said, John, you're one of the great leadership gurus, obviously, of our time. And John and you, Mark, were so generous to give us your teachings and for us to put it together. And we built a program together called Lead Today. Yeah. And that program just became so successful, teaching these 16 principles of leadership towards these young people. And then what we did is we went back, because transformation means that you can measure that something actually happened. So we went back with these young people that had gone through the Lead Today program. And what we saw is that out of the American Psychological Association, the APA's, what they call value and action assessment, that after they'd gone through that program, 92% of them had a significant increase in 16 of the 24 values that are necessary to have values in your life. We launched that program in Ghana with the government. It went throughout the nation. Then we had 12 nations in Africa, now 8 nations in Asia, all over the world. And together, over 7 million young people now are going through that particular program. So what we saw in our partnership was we could really scale these principles of transformation. And it wasn't just some ethereal understanding of what transformation was. It was something that was measurable so that we could know that actual transformation was taking place in the world. So I said, man, if we could do that with Lead today, then let's just expand that program. And the writing of the book is part of how do we make sure that everybody anywhere can take those principles and apply them to their lives and see significant change.
Yeah, chapter 7, all about measuring, isn't it? Huh? And he just helped us huge because how many, what is it, how many billion? 1 point, what is it?
Oh, how many kids does One Hope reach?
Yeah.
We've 1.7 billion children, 177 countries.
Hold up. Billion. Billion.
Isn't it, see? I mean, it's an IQ test when you say, well, why did you want Rob to die? That's an IQ test, folks, because you have had so much experience. But what was so encouraging to me is when you measured what we were doing, now you just had the facts out of this. This is true transfer. If it can't be measured, it's not true transformation.
And that's what I loved as we wrote the book, because it's not just it's not just a book of theory.
Yeah.
In fact, John, as we were writing the book, he kept reminding me, he said, Rob, this is not a textbook, And so what we wanted was to write a book, and it has both these elements in it, that was completely inspirational. People aren't going to do anything if they're not inspired. How many of you know John Maxwell knows how to inspire people? And so that's filled with that. But not only John's teachings of inspiration around this aspect of transformation and change your world, but we also wanted to put information in there and create a process. So the actual Maxwell transformative process is inside the book to teach people to how to actually make a difference in your world. And then the last chapter, chapter 9, is the call to action. Yeah. And what we said from the very beginning, Mark, and you were the one that helped us build this over the last year, was we had to build a process and a platform in order to create a movement. So the book is just the beginning, but then inviting people in to take the assessment, to go and figure out for themselves, of the 25 values that we talk about in the book, where are my strengths? Which values am I strong in? Which ones I discovered I'm weak in, and I need to strengthen those particular values in my life. So the values assessment helps us to do that, and then put them into the transformational tables, where people can learn from one another, as John and your organization have done, as One Hope has done around the world. None of us can transform the world by ourselves. It's all about coming together, and that's what this platform helps us to do, is to connect with people that have a powerful desire to see things change in their families, in their communities, in their cities, in their entire nations.
Just stay right with me. Hold on. This is so huge, Rob, what you're just saying. We change our world, our community, one table at a time. And I don't want you to miss this, because we want you to, obviously, we want you to read the book. Obviously, we want you to take the values assessment. But the bottom line is we want you to get in a transformation table. And we want you to not only get in one, we want you to facilitate one. Because here's what I know. I was asked quite a few years ago now, maybe 12 or 13 years ago, to do the first session of the opening of the United Nations. And so I'm talking to all the ambassadors for 2 hours on leadership, but I realized that the challenge is different cultures, total different type of governments. I mean, diversity off the wall. What am I going to say that's going to connect with them? And I shared with them that there are 3 questions that every follower asks of the leader. And I'm going to give you those 3 questions, but those questions are more unique in a transformation table, because what we have discovered after millions of people going through these tables is that the tables work because the 3 questions that people ask are answered in a table. The first question, do you care for me? Care is always understood in small groups. It's not understood in the masses. It's not even understood today as I'm talking to you and online. I mean, I can tell you I care for you, but you don't need words, you need experience of care. It happens in a table. The second question, can you help me? In other words, if I come alongside of you, does my life get better? Do I get out of the ditch? Whatever it is, can you help me? And the third question is, can I trust you? Are you trustworthy? I mean, how much of my life can I really share with you? And all of those questions are answered in the affirmative in a transformation table. And this is why we're so excited, because we find this works in schools with kids, but hey, this works in business. We are now having some of the largest companies in America begin to start doing transformational tables. And the reason they're doing it is because we've already, hey, when we were I went in, what was it, Guatemala, wasn't it? The CEO asked me to come and speak to 2,000, the second largest bank, 10,000 employees, wanted me to speak to their all their clients. They brought in 2,000 of their major clients. And the CEO, before I got up to speak, said, let me explain to you. He said, we've been doing transformation tables with all of the people in our company. He said, we've been teaching them values now for 2 years. And he said, let me tell you, there are 3 things that we're experiencing because of it, and that's why you're here today to the clients. He said, first of all, he said, our bottom line income in our company has just gone through the roof. Because what are they learning around those values at the table? Hard work, integrity, just stuff that's going to give you a bottom line. I mean, it just works because it's values. He said, secondly, we now have a culture of leaders because our different people are facilitating these tables, and all of a sudden, leadership is coming out. We're finding leaders we didn't even know we had in our company. And he said, thirdly, and this is what was beautiful, he said the families of our employees are having positive change. They're going home. They're going home at night and sitting around the table and said, you know what, we discussed this value today and this is what this means to me. And he said, all of a sudden, the families are getting so much better. And I thought, I don't need to speak. He's already spoken. Experience has spoken. So why I'm talking to you, you that have small businesses, big businesses, you have, hey, whatever your organizations are, I mean, we're in the healthcare. It doesn't matter what you're in. I want to say you need to have transformation tables in your companies. This is huge.
That's one reason I'm so happy that what Change Your World really does is it makes this principle available to absolutely everybody.
Absolutely.
And the book is filled with stories. I mean, so many stories that inspired our lives, that still inspire me today as I read through those stories and experience those people's lives.
Because the stories are the story.
The stories are the story.
I want to come to one of those stories in a minute, but those of you that are watching, you need to know there's 3 things that we want you to do today, and all of them are in one site. We want you to get the book. We want you to take a free assessment. We want you to join the movement. What John's been talking about with the tables is joining the movement. We want you to participate. We want you to lead tables. You can find all that information at changeyourworld.com. You can do all 3 of those. Get the book, take the assessment, join the movement, changeyourworld.com. Let's come back to this idea on stories.
Yeah.
So, John, you could literally talk all day about millions of people right now during the school day, whether they're at home because of COVID, whether they're in school during the school day because of the mandate of Minister of Education, they're taking your material. Mass. We can go to 1 billion plus kids around the world and show impact. We can talk mass. But what I love about this book, I love this. You guys got down to the stories, and the stories connected with me. I get motivated by all the maths, but I get inspired when you guys have done a masterful job of sharing the story of it. Rob, tell us one of these stories.
Well, and the thing is how anyone, anywhere. So we wanted to make sure and put the stories in there that were accessible to, and that's the type of stories that are in there. There's a story in there of a little girl from Lima, Peru, that I had met. I mean, she was being sexually abused by her father. I mean, and this young lady had everything going against her. In a slum, abused. You would think this could never be a picture of transformation. And yet we follow her story, and that young lady is changing the education system in Peru today. We all the way to stories he's telling about corporate America. Right here in South Florida, one of my friends who's a super successful millionaire, a lot of success, but he hadn't found significance in his life. His story's in there, his story of transformation. And one other story that's so personal to me was a story of a young lady who, we have these 25 principles. And if I was to get, I sort of give people after I meet them, I sort of take a value and sort of they become the picture of that particular value. And this young lady, it was passion. It was passion. She was one of my best friends in the world's daughter. And from the time she was a little girl, you saw passion in this little girl. We were at a dining room table or throughout her teenage years. I mean, passion. And that passion got misdirected in high school. And John, we talk about nothing ever happens without action, right? You can have, it's just a dream. You can have every idea in the world. Well, sometimes that action can get pointed in the wrong direction, and that's the way her life was. A lot of passion, but in the wrong direction. I saw those parents hurting. And as we began to think and pray for this young girl with passion, she suddenly came into this encounter that we're talking about in the book that totally changed her life. And she's actually here with us today. And I want to talk about passion and this young lady. And her name's Charlie, and she's here with us. So she can probably tell the story better than I can. But one of the incredible stories that's in the book's here with us today.
Let's hear the story. Let's give it. I loved it.
I'll be quick. But yeah, such an honor to be here, and especially such an honor to be featured in this book. Just resonating with so much of what the two of you are saying this morning, and how it is such a direct link to my own life. But I was a rebel without a cause for a while when I was in high school. I think I got kicked out of 2 private Christian schools here in the Fort Lauderdale area, and had to disrupt my norm for something to change. If nothing changes, nothing changes, so the saying goes. And that for me, that was going to Africa and seeing some of the poorest communities interacting with some of the mistreated, most marginalized people that I had ever met. And it took my attention from being inward and put it outward, that my problems in the petty high school hallways were not the biggest problems in the world. And that was transformational to me. And it was also on a 6-month internship, actually, with Rob's organization, One Hope, working in high schools and orphanages, and just seeing some of the most surreal needs of people that rocked my world. And it was specifically targeted towards mothers in crisis, mothers who are at risk. And I held that value towards my own heart and soul so closely. And I just believed, and that was my calling. That was my moment of calling, working with the most marginalized women and children in imminent danger and crisis. And I just believe that mothers have the most unique ability and power to reshape societies, and that my calling was to advocate for them in their distress and in their crisis. And through my advocacy, mobilizing others to learn how to become advocates in their own spheres of influence for these same moms. And I just think the transformational values for the girls we serve now, I started a nonprofit organization out of my dorm room in college, and it was student-led for a season, and we started small, and we have a very niche focus. We work with moms who are at risk of losing their children in the foster care system, and moms who live below the federal poverty line, fatherlessness, moms who are abortion vulnerable, operating out of this sense of whole life advocacy from the womb to the tomb. And we were just able to see it grow over the last 10 years. And I'm still just starting out. I'm 30. I started this when I was 20. And you got to start small, dream big, go slow. I can't tell you how many times people have come to me with that seed of inspiration to say, I really want to start something. And maybe it's not always starting something, but it's adding value to whatever it is that calling is. And then it stops there, because that second element of consistency is so important. To imagine that I've been doing this for a third of my life feels, oftentimes people are like, you're still doing that thing? And we're just getting started, and there's such of a thing of a tipping point that is real, and it truly is that consistency and that passion. You have to love what you do to be able to stick it out, because there are some very, very, very mundane moments in it all. Very meticulous, that feel, are we spinning our wheels in mud, or are we actually measuring what we're doing to be able to show that we're changing something? Transform people. I believe that. And I know the transformation values in this book is something that even the moms we serve could so and will benefit from. That those values in their very impoverished communities where violence and abuse and neglect is so prevalent, this is going to rock their worlds, because these values that they have never been taught in their own communities are now being made available to them in a very accessible resource that would be understanding across age, race, socioeconomic status. And that is what is so exciting about this book and why we're
Well,
so
someday,
grateful.
Charlie, you're going to get excited about this subject.
I love
And you're
this.
going to
I
actually
love her
do
excitement.
something and be passionate
I
about
love her
it.
excitement.
So she's taken her value of passion as not a kind of rebellious teenager, her father's here, can testify, a very rebellious teenager, using all that energy in sort of the wrong direction. And yet that moment came when you saw it and now turned around. And for 10 years now, guys, hundreds of young girls who have been able to say, I can keep my child. They don't have to go into the foster care. This is foster care. We all love foster care ministry. How many of you know it's better if we don't have to have foster care? If there's moms out there that are prepared, that can take care of their kids. And Charlie, and through her wonderful organization called EMA, has helped now hundreds of young people, starting as a 20-year-old. These are the stories of transformation that are in the book. And now, John, she was telling me, she leaned over, she's going to take her girls, these EMA girls, these young moms, through the values roundtables and produce a whole new generation. Why don't we give it up for Charlie and thank her for what she's doing.
So Charlie, I'm not sure what you're doing the next 8 days, but we may have to kick one of these guys off and get you on the plane.
Yes,
Phenomenal.
especially when we go to Bismarck, North Dakota. We've left.
Yeah. John and I were talking to, this is the great leadership
And we
organization.
digress.
And no, this is, and I go, now, what leadership principle, John, did you teach him about Bismarck in the middle of January? And John said, well, he didn't hear me really good. I said the Bahamas, and he heard Bismarck. That's right. And I said, well, you must have said St. Lucia, because we're going to St. Louis.
Yeah.
And where was the other one? Grand Rapids. Where did he?
Grand Cayman.
Grand Cayman. He just got it all mixed up. So
He got it all messed up. But, in the 21 Laws of Leadership book, I talk about the law of timing. And he just did not read that law at all. So it's very obvious to you. In the book, Mark, I really want to call attention to something I think that's very helpful. It talks about, in the beginning, we talk about hope has two beautiful daughters, anger and courage. Anger because of the way things are, but courage to not allow them to remain the same. Now, if that resonates with you, you should be in the room. Because there ought to be a lot of anger stirring up within us because of all the things that we are experiencing today. The phrase that I use right now when people ask me to describe where we are is, I'm very leadership sad. I've been leadership sad now for quite some time because leaders are failing their responsibility to lead us in the way that we should be led. So when I think about where we are, I'm very angry. But anger itself, I've studied movements. We both have, Rob. And one of the things we know is you can't sustain a movement with anger. Mm-hmm. You have to have something positive. You have to have a positive quality that is sustainable in a movement. And that's why we're so committed to these values, because we understand that the moment, and by the way, the foundation of all this, the foundation of all the values is valuing people. And when I say valuing people, I mean valuing everybody. Yeah. Everybody. Again, I'm a person of faith, excuse me, but you have to understand, God so loved the world. The world. That's kind of inclusive and kind of carries a lot of people. And what happens is, in leadership, because I know this world well, when the Soviet Union fell, before I ever became Russia back in all that process, I was called, and I spoke in the palace, the communist palace in the Kremlin, to 5,000 communist leaders, right when it was beginning to fall, and they wanted to know what was coming next in the area of leadership. How do we lead without the state? And it was a very interesting day that I spent with them. But what I knew was I was talking to leaders who hadn't valued people. Hmm. And so therefore the people knew not what it was like to have a leader that literally valued them and put them first and placed them where. Now don't miss this, do not miss this. Okay, hang on. You see, if I see you as hurting, I'll help you. If I see you as broken, I'll fix you. But if I see you as valuable, I'll serve you. There is a world of difference between 1 and 2 and number 3. And it never happens. Transformation doesn't happen as long as I'm fixing and helping. It happens when I'm serving, and I will only serve when I truly value people, period. And that's what the book is about. That's what the movement is about. That's what the transformation tables are about. And we're so excited. We're so excited because we're getting to start today to tell our story. And Rob, look at these people. You're taking notes. You're in this game with me. I can see it. And online, I can't see you, but I bet you're at the game with me too. Because this isn't for everybody. We don't need everybody. We just need people who want to make a difference. I learned a long time ago, you can't carry people on this kind of I used to make the mistake. I used to try to get everybody on the leadership train. Dear God, that was a mistake. Hit the ball, drag Charlie. Hit the ball, drag Charlie. Hit the ball. After a while, you just want to hit Charlie. and this we don't, hey, we do need Charlie. We got Charlie here, I'm sorry. Hey, wrong expression here, Charlie. But the point being, we need people who really want to make it. This is not like we're trying to beg you, we're trying to coax you. No. If your heart isn't stirring, you're just in the wrong room today.
That's right. It's
got to be stirring. You got to be saying, and by the way, I love it. You said it 3 times, Rob. Anyone. This is for anybody here today. This is for anybody in your group. My hope is that you not get one book. My hope is you get a box of books. Because when you get a box of books, you know what you're saying? I'm going to start a table. I'm going to have 6 or 8 around the table. We're all going to read the book together, and then we're all going to do the 25 values together, and away we go.
So I just want to cover one more thing, Rob, because from my perspective, millions of people impacted through John's work, you brought a concept of output to outcomes to our table. And we built this ecosphere that I'm super excited about. I've talked about buy the book, do get the book, get Case's book. We're going to sign books, or they're going to sign books in just a moment here. Sorry for all of you online. But you can buy a book too. You can take the assessment, see how you're doing already, and then go on a journey to get better. All of that's at Change Your World. But these roundtables that we've talked about, this ecosystem, why is the ecosystem so important to your work of going from output to outcome?
Well, one of the key values in the transformation process is the word hope, and we've used it a lot today. But hope is more than an emotion. Hope is more than a feeling. That's optimism. We can be an optimistic person. That's a great feeling. That's a great emotion. But hope is actually an action, and there's a science around hope. And we talk about in the book how there's 3 main sort of pillars of what hope actually is. It's goals, and it's willpower, and it's way power. This is the science of hope that's been developed. And through research, we can see that these 3 elements are absolutely essential to the process of hope. And so what we're doing here is we're actually saying that transformation can be measured. And it can be measured by these things that we're talking about, by setting of goals. And that's why there's this call to action at the end of the book for them to come and to join us in this, because we're going to teach that transformation process for people to be able to set goals, for them to have enough willpower, for them to have the ability. This is Mr. Willpower right here. This guy is Mr. Inspiration. You can spend a little time with John. You're ready. Let's go do it. And so you have to have that willpower if hope is actually going to happen. You have to have way power. You have to have a process. We have this filled with what we call this outcome-based process, the Maxwell transformation process. We have what we call the 5 Ds in there, and you can go through all that teaching on these tables. So we're going to move people from these transformation roundtables where they're digging deep on these values, because the foundation, as John has so articulately said, is all built, and the need is for values-based leadership, or else transformation is going to not happen. But then the next thing is we've got to take action. And we've already talked about, vision without action is just a dream. But I'm going to tell you something. Action without values is a nightmare. And that's what we're seeing happen in our world today. Right. And so what we want to do is help people go through this process of being able to build something good and knowing that transformation is happening, how it's happening, and measure that it's happening. With Charlie, it's not just about saying, I want to go help these girls, and she's optimistic about, no, she has hope that something is going to happen because she has a real process that she's been taught, and she can actually begin with the end in mind and say, I want to see thousands of, I want to see young girls anywhere that want to keep their baby, be able to keep their baby and live a life that's vibrant for them and for their child. That takes a process, and that we're going to teach that on the thing. We call those action tables, and that's the next step after the transformation tables, for people to know, not just to talk ethereally about transformation, but to be able to make transformation happen anywhere, and anybody can do it.
I love that. And hope means help. If there's no help, there's no hope.
There's no help.
You know, when he talks about action, you know, action's right in the word traction. You can't have traction without action. You got to have movement. And one of the things we really worked hard on in the book, as you go to changeyourworld.com, is I kept saying to Mark, we have to have social interaction. We've got to get them. We got to resource them, whether it's with the kids' curriculum for schools, homeschool people. I mean, we got this, and it's all free. It's all free. Or whether it's the round tables, the assessment. We've got to be able to resource you so that you can get started immediately. Again, remember this. I think a lot of people want to make a difference, but I don't think a lot of people have a way. Go back to that willpower, way power, that path, a way to make a difference. And so this is a movement of giving you a way to make a difference. And my hope is that all of us will leave here today saying, I'm going to get my assessment, I'm going to get the book, but I'm going to start a table, and that we immediately start this movement.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap here and let you guys sign some books here in Florida, and let all of you online go to changeyourworld.com. But I want to give anybody here one question. We were going to do a little bit more, but we're going to pick one question here. We're going to pick one question online. I'm watching the comments. The comments are incredible, guys. So you've done great. But is there a question here? And while I'm letting the question here, if you're online, you want to ask John or Rob a question, we're going to take one question, and then we'll wrap for the day. Who wants to ask a question in the room? Yes, sir. Give us your name and go real loud, and then I'll repeat the question, guys.
Yeah, just stand up for us, would you?
So the question is, Edgar, right? Edgar asked the question, what verse in the Bible do you read to recharge your battery?
Well, shoot, there's so many of it, but when you go over to Matthew 25 and he talks about the fact I was hungry and you fed me, I was in prison, you came to visit me, I was naked and you clothed me. What I love about that the reason I love this passage so much is Jesus takes adding value to people so personally that when we do it, he said, you do it to us. And so whenever, because again, I'm a person of faith, I'm sorry, but because of that, every time we do a transformation table, Jesus is at that table. We're making a difference. And by the way, when somebody asked me the other day, where should I start? Well, Margaret and I, last year when we were taking our children, our grandchildren on a vacation, on a cruise, we sit down with our 5 grandchildren, and we did all these values with our grandchildren. And we're wrapping up our vacation. It was a Disney cruise. It was a good cruise. And when we're wrapping it up, my kids all know. See, I don't think experience is the best teacher. If experience was the best teacher, everybody as they got older would get better. I know a whole bunch of people, they're older, they're not better at all. You with me? Evaluated experience is the best teacher. In other words, you got to look at the experience and say, well, okay, what do I, so I always, as my children were growing up, my grandchildren, I always ask them 2 questions after every experience. What do you love? What do you learn? What do you love? What do you learn? So we're wrapping our vacation up with our grandchildren. And I said, what was the favorite part of the cruise? All 5 of them separately. I mean, all 5 of them said the values teaching with Mimi and Papa. Now, of course, they were kissing up for another trip, I'm sure. But the point being, that's what they remembered. And so when people, I say, start your transformation table with your family. I mean, hello, start at home, start with your family, then go to your neighbor, go to your business associates and branch out. But this transformation table with these values really works. That's a long took a long time to give you that verse, didn't I? Huh?
He gave you a message and a verse.
Yeah,
I like that.
I'll be quick. I mean, my life verse is one. Hey, look, John said, what's his favorite book, the one he's writing right now? My favorite scripture verse is probably the one I read this morning. You need to be in God's word every day. And as you allow the Holy Spirit to speak to you through that word, I guarantee you're going to get something out of that word. And I try and live that verse every day that just impresses on me in my time of prayer. So my favorite verse of the day is, and we're starting this tour. Every week we're going to be out there. So my favorite verse for today is out of Romans 12. Do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, which is God's good and perfect will. Boy, you talk about a verse that this nation needs right now. I mean, we have, as the church, conformed to the patterns of this world, and we need our minds renewed by God so that we can become agents of transformation for Him in the world. His good and perfect will is waiting for the people of the world, and He uses us, His people, to allow us to introduce Him to Jesus, who's able to transform people's minds. So that's my verse today.
So
I better watch out. I'm in a chapel. I might start preaching
I
here,
know
so.
it. Oscar asked the question. George Hoskins, I'm getting ready to put you on the spot. Oscar asked the question, how do I get this resource in Spanish? And the answer is?
You can choose your language.
So when you go to changeyourworld.com, Oscar, you can pick the language. And today, actually tomorrow, for the first time ever, thank you, Matt Yates and your team, we were able to launch a Spanish Change Your World platform and a Romanian Change Your World platform and the books all at the same time. That's epic, gang. You may not know that, but that's incredible, and that's because of the incredible team that's behind us. Will you give them an incredible hand for all that you
Mark,
guys did?
And Mark, if we don't have your language now, it's coming to a channel near you, hopefully sometime this year. We want to do this in multiple languages.
It is. Last question, guys. Talisha, she said, John, Rob, what do you do to keep yourself consistent? What is it that you do to keep yourself consistent?
Well, for me, it's anticipation. I'm up very early, and usually from 5 to about 11:30. I don't really do much except write, think, pray, cultivate what I'm learning in my heart and my mind. And people think, well, John, you're incredibly self-disciplined. I said, no, not really. I awaken early because I'm filled with anticipation of the things I'm going to think and write and share that are going to change lives. Because I'm 73. I've really been doing leadership strong for 45 years. And I just know of the millions of people whose lives have been changed. And so when I get up and I write Change Your World, I can hardly wait because I know that there's going to be something that is written, there's going to be something that's going to be shared, that's going to change a person's life. So it's anticipation that causes me to stay consistent and stay in the game.
For me, consistency, I'm going to use something that sounds very unattractive, not very appealing, probably might not even sell very many books, John. But for me,
don't say it.
Consistency, I'll get around to it. Consistency for me is all about this word, accountability. Now, accountability doesn't sound like it's something very exciting or thrilling, but I want to tell you something. By making yourself accountable to a community, to a group of people, to a round table, this allows me to make sure that I'm holding myself true to those things that I have spoken out as important. We talk about outcome-based ministry. That means beginning with the end in mind. I've stated what's important in my life. It's my marriage to my wife. It's how I raise my children. It's how I want to see my community transformed. It's how I want to run my One Hope ministry and enterprise. Those things I have spoken, I need to keep myself accountable to every day of my life. And the way I do that is through accountability. Now, this generation is dying for community. They feel like they're all alone. They're isolated. They've been fragmented. Their families have been pulled apart. Their communities are being pulled apart. We've never had a more polarized time in the United States than ever before. People are dying for good community. Young people, I want to tell you something. Community comes with accountability. There is no community without accountability. So I think it's just such a powerful way for me to keep myself consistent, but for us to say, in relationship, accountable to one another. John and I wrote this book together. We made ourselves accountable to each other. That keeps us consistent and keeps us on the right path. If you want good consistency in your life, get great accountability in your life.
Wow. So, buy a book, take the assessment, join the table, join the movement. That's our simple 3 steps today. That's what we've communicated to you. We literally have now trained over 5,000, actually the number's 8,000 men and women that are ready online to take people through tables to let you experience a table first so then you can go start your own table in your community. The team's been hard at work. John and Rob's been working on this book for over a year, but now it's in your hands. It's your turn. We've got the resources, changeyourworld.com. We've got the 3 easy steps: buy a book, take the assessment, join the movement. We've got it lined up for you, but now we need you to join the movement. And so thank you for coming. Guys, I'm going to give you a chance to say anything else, and then we're going to thank these incredible people for joining us live.
I just want to say it's go time. The book launches tomorrow, and a lot of our lives, really almost all of our whole lives, experiences are poured into this book and building this platform. So I'm just excited. Here we go. It's going to be a great journey, John.
Yeah, I think so too. I know people, you know people like this, don't you? How many of you know somebody that they're always getting ready to get ready? I mean, honest to God, they just wear me out. I mean, you know what I'm talking about? They're just always getting ready. I think, well, when are you going to do something? Well, I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready to get ready. This is, we're done with getting ready to get ready.
It's time to go.
When Rob said go, I mean go. So don't say, well, this is something I'll think about, no. Let's get in the game. Let's get in the game, and let's get in the game today. We're in it. We want you to be with us, and let's start a movement that really can change our world.
Join your world. Change your world. Join the world. Changeyourworld.com. In the chat box, in the room, will you help me thank John Maxwell, Rob Hoskins?
Thanks, John.
Thanks very much.
John and Rob here are going to sign the book. Please, the books are available in the back. They'll be up here, snap a picture with you because you're all VIPs in this room, they tell me, and I agree with them. They'll do that. Grab not just a book, but more books, and you want to say something?
I just want to say, like, if you want to start a table with either your family or with your group, if you'll go get a box or whatever you want, if you'll come up and give us the names, we'll put their names in there, okay? And we'll sign them to them so you can literally give them a signed book and say, here, we're going to start this together. So anyway, we'll hang up here and sign books for you. Thank you for coming very much.